The following broadcast of A Pause for Thought has been pre-recorded, so please don't call in at this time. If you'd like to participate, listen every Wednesday at 5 p.m. for A Pause for Thought on Baton Rouge Community Radio. Good evening, fellow humans. This is Wayne Parker with A Pause for Thought, coming to you on Baton Rouge Community Radio, WHYR-LP 96.9 FM in Baton Rouge, the only volunteer-operated, donation-funded radio station in Baton Rouge. First, I'd like to give a brief description of my intentions with this show and my rules for your participation in it. This is a live call-in show, so you are all invited to call in and voice your views and sentiments on the topic of the day. The phone number is 343-9927, 343-9927. If you're out of the area and live streaming on WHYR.org, then just simply call the area code 225-343-9927. Now, back to the rules. We need not constrain ourselves to the specific topic of the evening. Going off on tangents related to the topic is both okay and encouraged. All comments, however, must be voiced strictly as opinions and in a respectful manner. Anyone who wishes to preach or insult other opinions will be asked to adjust their attitude once. As the title of this show implies, I want to create an environment where people can discuss issues that are important to them, our community, to our state, and the country as a whole. Overall, I hope to make this a forum for thoughtful discussion by thoughtful people. Okay, so we're ready to go now, and if you've been listening to the promos for the past few weeks, by the way, if you heard any hesitation right there when I was getting started, we have our engineer in the studio fiddling with things, and he distracted me a bit. But our topic for tonight, to begin with, is religion good, bad, or irrelevant for a healthy society? And with me to discuss this and also share insights with you if you call in are my friends and co-hosts, Lang and John, or Johnny. I call him Johnny out of habit. I don't know what he prefers, and I suppose it's too late now to ask him. But as we like to do when we discuss things in casual situations, we need to define our terms. And so we're wondering what if religion is good, bad, or irrelevant to a healthy society. I guess, guys, the first thing we need to do is define what we're going to talk about as society. What generally, society is a bunch of people somewhere. How do you want to define our boundaries? I'm guessing since we're broadcasting to the people of Baton Rouge mainly, although as I understand it, there are a few people in Estonia who are listening to us, we should probably confine our society for our definition here as Baton Rouge, the Baton Rouge metropolitan area.
That sounds fine to me.
Okay. Okay, we're going to stick with the Baton Rouge community area, the metro area. Now, how about a healthy society? What does a healthy society look like? Any suggestions?
I would say one that promotes the well-being of the people who are in that society.
Promotes the well-being of the people. You're talking everybody, I guess, right?
Well, it'll depend on how the religious impact unfolds. Hopefully it would not be detrimental to anyone and would be beneficial for all, but depending on what kind of conflicts there are among members of the society, that may not be possible.
Okay, hang on now. Though right now we're simply talking about what a healthy society is. We haven't even got to religion yet. But a healthy society, basically, I think we can agree, would be a group of people within a certain geographical area, which we've defined as Baton Rouge metropolitan area. And since we live with each other, we pretty much have to get along, right?
So, I hope so.
Yes, okay. That's Lang speaking, by the way, everyone. So just in case you hear him again, you'll identify his voice. Yeah, my idea of a healthy society would be one that is inclusive of all citizens, we accept people as they are, regardless of their religious belief, regardless of their sexual orientation, regardless of whether they smell bad or anything like that. We just accept people for what they are. This doesn't necessarily mean that we need to hang around with them, though. Do we have to hang around with them?
Well, just to add to that, Wayne, one comment I'd like to make based on some reading here just recently is that Karen Armstrong, who's a noted religious scholar, says it's time to move beyond diversity and respect to move toward more appreciation, which is the next step. So I thought that was an interesting comment that I just wanted to share. And that might be part of that healthy society you're asking about.
Move more toward appreciation. Okay, I think what I'm getting from that is grow beyond simple tolerance and acceptance, like, oh, well, he's this way and I don't like it, but I'll accept it and just go along with it, and actually take pleasure or be glad to have the different perspective or the different behavior. Is that what she's getting at?
Right.
Okay.
Right. That's my interpretation. Yes.
Okay. No, I like that. And in fact, I've often thought that each of us, every single one of us, has a piece of the puzzle, the piece of the larger picture of life. And if we just simply share our own perspective with each other, each of us gains a little piece from the other person, and we all get a bigger picture of what's going on. So, yeah, okay. So we've generally agreed then that the Baton Rouge metropolitan area will be our society, and a healthy society is one that accepts everyone. What about the sub-societies, so to speak, though, like some of the areas where there's very high crime and there's poverty and things like that? Do we just accept them and get along with them, invite them to our house, or what? I know I'm throwing you guys a curveball, but I just got to thinking about that. It's like, well, we have some not vicious neighborhoods, but neighborhoods where people behave in vicious ways in a lot of times, and there's a high murder rate. How do we handle them in a healthy society?
I think you'd need to distinguish between particular individuals and the neighborhood. In any neighborhood, there are a lot of people with a great diversity of behaviors and attitudes and points of view. And I wouldn't approach it in terms of how to deal with a neighborhood, rather how we as a society respond to problems that we encounter from particular members of our society.
Okay, I can go along with that. John?
Just to add to that, to me, that sort of segues into the role of religion in society. So maybe we can sort of move that on into that.
Yeah, let's get off and move on to religion. Yeah.
Well, just to answer that question, how do we deal with the different parts of our society? To me, we deal with it politically, which sometimes is successful, sometimes not so successful. So maybe religion comes into play there with how we treat each other, meaning how we treat the other parts of our society.
So then you're already answering our question in a way, or at least from your perspective, that society at least can be a benefit.
Absolutely. Can be.
Can be.
At its best.
At its best. But what is religion, though? What do you mean by religion? Anybody?
That's Lane. Well, I'm going to quote Karen Armstrong, since I've been doing a lot of reading of her. She says religion is behavior, how we act toward others. It is more than just a set of creeds or a set of beliefs. So she says that all great religions are based at their core on the Golden Rule.
Okay.
Okay.
And I recall reading from Houston Smith's book, The World's Religions, where he gave a brief, by brief I mean maybe 60, 70 pages each on the major religions of the world, and he basically came to the same conclusion. In fact, he created the analogy that God is the peak of a mountain, and all the different religions are different roads leading up the side of that mountain to the peak. And he also added, though, that if you're spending all your time trying to get somebody to go up, getting everybody to go up your road, you're not going up your road yourself. So, by the way, who was Karen Armstrong? Is she in a...
Karen Armstrong was featured on TED Talk here, a repeat of a TED Talk. I believe it was this past Friday, but it was a TED Talk that she did back in 2009, I believe, that was featured this past Friday. But going on the internet, you can just Google, Karen Armstrong TED Talk, and there were two of them that really caught my interest. That were 2008 and 2009, and she addresses a lot of these, specifics, questions that we're talking about, issues.
Okay, good. Yeah, and I think that's valuable. I think you guys would agree, and the audience would agree, that thoughtful, respectful, deep consideration of major philosophical and religious issues is lacking in the American public discourse. Along with Karen Armstrong's definition, the definition you just shared with us, I'd like to share Leo Tolstoy's definition. He was, everybody knows him for his books War and Peace and Anna Karenina, but once he grew older and made his fortune, I suppose, in writing his books or from the royalties, he began to study Christianity and became a noted Christian scholar. And in his book titled Confessions, he defined religion as follows: true religion is that relationship in accordance with reason and knowledge which man establishes with the infinite world around him, and which binds his life to that infinity and guides his actions, and leads to the practical rules of the law: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So he concluded the same thing, so did I. And, I'm not trying to get religious here by saying this, but Jesus even said the kingdom of God is within you, and love your neighbor as yourself, which to me says that we're all made from the same stuff, we're all connected, we're all governed by the same set of physical laws, both known and unknown, and so we really are basically each other. So we should treat each other that way. And, but how about religion in American society today? Does religion have any place at all in politics? Any place. Just and think broadly. By the way, you can call in if you'd like. The phone number here is 343-9927. If you're out of the area, just dial the area code 225-343-9927. We'd like to know what you're thinking, too. Okay, Lang, you were fixing to say something?
I was just thinking that what you and John were both describing as a common shared fundamental principle is a principle that has a role to play in politics, whether it's expressed through religious doctrine is a different question, but I think that the fundamental notion there is one of justice, and that certainly is an important component of what politics should be about.
Well, yeah, but justice is kind of a slippery word when you ask different people what justice is, and you'll come up with just as many different answers as people you ask, wouldn't you?
Well, you probably come up with a lot of different answers on what religion is as well.
Well, that's true.
But I was thinking in terms of the golden rule being a fundamental principle of justice.
Oh, okay. So how would that apply to somebody who commits murder? How would you want to be treated if you murdered somebody?
If I murdered somebody?
I presume you wouldn't, but that's probably an extreme. I don't mean to put you on the spot, Lang. But
well, I think that how I would hope that I would respond to someone who committed a murder of someone close to me is with compassion and an attempt to understand what was motivating, what the psychological profile of that person was, why they acted the way they did.
Let's just say, hypothetically, since you're reluctant to say it, that I murdered somebody for whatever reason. Chances are I thought it was a pretty good idea when I did it. So somebody wanting to take revenge on me might be a little bit obnoxious, or I wouldn't like that. But hang on a second, we've got a call coming in. Good evening. You're on Baton Rouge Community Radio. You're on the air. May I ask who's calling? Hello.
Guess we lost them.
Okay, they're gone. Okay, false alarm. It could have been a salesman calling or something else. Who knows? But anyway, okay, so let's say that I murdered somebody, and apparently I thought it was a good idea when I did it. Maybe the person did something terrible to a member of my family, and I took it upon myself because the government failed to convict him or arrest him or something like that. So let's try this again and see if we can. Good evening, you're on the air.
Okay.
Okay. We seem to be having a problem getting the phone to come through. So we'll just move on here then. Anyway, getting back to the do unto others as you would have them do unto you. If I murdered somebody and I'm sure I would have thought it was a good idea at the time, I would want people to consider what was going on in my mind, like you said, Lang. I wouldn't want people to just automatically assume, well, you killed my friend or my family member, so I want revenge. I want you to suffer too. So I guess it would apply to that also. But getting back to religion in government, there are a lot of people who think that if we only impose the Christian God's rules on everyone would get along, and the country would be perfect. How do you feel about that? Anybody?
Well, I think it gets back to maybe a comment we were discussing a while ago about what would the great religions do. Getting back to Karen Armstrong and some of her teachings and some of her research and publications, she believes and teaches that one of the issues we have with all our religions is that we spend so much time arguing about who God is. And is your God stronger than mine? Is your God right and my God wrong? So therein lies her thesis that we get into lots of problems. Is Christianity better than Buddhism? Is Christianity better than Islam, which is definitely in the news right now? Is it better than Judaism? Is one better than the other one? And gets back to her belief that we can spend too much time just talking about belief instead of going out and acting out the golden rule.
Yeah, good point. In fact, I would suggest that, well, for sure, the members of ISIS claim to be representing Islam, but they do not act in accordance with the tenets of Islam. And I would also suggest that there are a great many Buddhists and a great many Christians who claim the label of Christian or Buddhist, but don't act that way at all. And so to me, and by Leo Tolstoy's own comments and definitions, they really aren't or don't subscribe to the religion they claim. Because, as Tolstoy said, if you're not living it, it's not your religion. The only true religion is personal. It's your relationship to the world. It's whatever governs your life, your actions. So if you're acting in a way that is hateful or vicious or spiteful or judgmental, that doesn't comport with the teachings of Jesus or the Buddha's view of life or anything like that. So really, is it really beliefs or is it behavior? We're governed by certain things as animals, basically. How much of that plays in? Lang, you ever thought, or were you just thinking?
Well, I think we're getting into a muddying of the waters of what religion is. You can say it's your behaviors, the way you act in the world. You can say it's your list of things to do and not to do. You can say it's how you treat your fellow man when they don't act in the way that you think is right. So depending on where you come down on how you define what religion is, you're going to be led to a different conclusion.
Well, I suppose that's the dilemma, and the waters are already quite muddied concerning religion, because we have everybody screaming their religion is the best, and we have many, many Christians who all disagree, who are claiming that their particular religion is the best.
Well, there is that dispute. I was talking more about the problem of coming up with categorically what is religion, whether it's the behaviors, whether it's the fundamental principles of doing unto others as you would have them do unto you, whether it's the detailed code of behavior.
Okay, can there be a detailed code of behavior, though?
Well, you can start with the Ten Commandments as a detailed code of behavior.
Yeah, I suppose you can. But does that cover all the bases, though?
No, but I imagine a biblical scholar could point out a lot of other rules that are in the fundamental texts that Christians subscribe to or claim to.
Some Christians, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, thou shalt not kill is pretty plain, but clearly there are a lot of Christians who believe killing's all right.
Yeah, well, we have a number of states in this country that still practice execution.
Yes, and I know a lot of people who call themselves Christians who would take pleasure in the execution of a vicious criminal or something like that, and I can't see taking pleasure in the killing of anybody, really. But I guess as far as religion, there's what people profess and there's what people do, and I guess that's where the concerns with religion come into play. People want to impose their religion. What on the surface, what is wrong with wanting to impose your religion on others?
I think that depends on what the belief system is in one particular religion and one particular denomination, or different denominations within those religions. If we all acted toward each other according to the golden rule, how would that differentiate us from a religious point of view? I mean, would our behavior be different as Christians? Would it be different as Buddhists, as Muslims, as Jews? If we all acted, all of our actions according to the golden rule, what would distinguish us between denominations? It would probably be just the rituals, which are fine, and the rituals may help remind us of who we are, where we've been from. But then them in and of themselves don't necessarily lead to peace among religious peoples, but they do help us stay in that mindset according to different scholars. So we don't throw out the creeds, we don't throw out the ritual, but if we all adhere to the golden rule, then everything comes together.
Okay. I understand that. Yeah, well, okay, there are the different rituals associated with all different kinds of religions, but as you're saying, though, if the public face of a person's religion accepts everyone else as equal, then there shouldn't be any big deal. There shouldn't be a problem. Of course, that's a long ways away from Karen Armstrong's suggestion that we appreciate diversity, rather than simply tolerating it. But here again, that would be an ideal society, and we're far from that. And I firmly believe that humanity can never be ideal, will never be perfect, and that's why there's the concept of forgiveness. You need to forgive yourself as well as others. If they're striving to better themselves, then roll with it. Everybody goose up now and then. But, I'm thinking, too, that the Unitarian Church is probably the epitome of that, because they have lots of different faiths there, and their overall covenant with each other is to respect everyone equally. All human beings are deserving of some minimal amount of respect. We don't ridicule anyone who just because they disagree with us. So that, I guess, as far as the topic for tonight, religion is both good and bad depending on how it's practiced. But if a person believes in a religion that is very judgmental, is that necessarily a bad thing for the public? Just because they think and they are judgmental of others?
I think it would depend on, based on that precept, what actions do they take as a result of those beliefs. And I think that's the big point, is how do we leave our churches on Sunday morning, Wednesday night, Saturdays? What do we go out and do based on our beliefs, based on our judgments that we make?
Okay, yeah. How we relate to so our religions would be good if we all practice the same religion in public.
Or if we all practice the Golden Rule.
Yeah.
Which may be the core, according to some scholars, the core of all religions.
Yeah, I think if we all look at a lot of the serious religious scholars, they've all come to the same conclusions. That's true. And to me, it's the natural thing. I came to it naturally after shrugging off the beliefs I was raised with. And began thinking about things myself. Being an engineer, I thought about the different physical laws I had learned about, and I began to notice patterns in life that indicated that everything operates by the same set of rules. Everything operates in cycles. Everything, there's a good and bad or an up and down to everything, and so it's natural. So I would think, in that sense, it's good. But then there's the political aspect, which I suppose we probably shouldn't get into. We already know all about that. In fact, that's why there is a lot of disruption in other parts of the world, and there could very well be here, I suppose, if people try to impose their particular religion on other people. It's a violation of conscience, I would think. And really, who are we able to influence? How many people can we directly influence in the world? Each of us.
It depends on how open the people around us are in our communications with them, the influence that they allow to come in, and the influence we allow to come in from them.
I guess whose behavior can you really change? And what I'm getting at is really we're the only ones that we can control, and sometimes that's questionable too, right?
Yeah. Especially if you were to go out and murder somebody, as you hypothesized earlier.
Yeah, that's true. Of course, I presume that I'd put a lot of thought into it so I wouldn't get caught. But then again, I'm sure everybody else would too, or anybody else that would do it, unless it was in the heat of passion.
Which most of them probably are.
Yes. Okay. Well, I'm being reminded here to remind all of you out there that this show is being recorded, and we will be rebroadcasting it 3 times during the next 7 days. At which point we will be kicking off with the next show next Wednesday at 5 o'clock. And I neglected to bring the list of topics with me, so I can't say now what the next week's topic will be, but there'll be promos running all week. You can know that. This is Wayne Parker with a pause for thought on Baton Rouge Community Radio, 96.9 FM in Baton Rouge. And I thank you for listening. I thank those who called, but we failed to answer. And we'll talk to you next week. Remember that, as Margaret Mead stated, Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful and committed persons can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Have a good evening, everyone.